One of my favorite option strategies, of course, is the wheel strategy. I even wrote a book about the wheel strategy called The Super Wheel Option Strategy, available on Amazon. You'll find a link to the book in the description below. But I love the wheel, and I get a lot of questions about running the wheel. Specifically, why start the wheel using a short put? Why not start the wheel with a covered call? People often ask that. Aren't short puts and covered calls essentially the same trade as far as a risk profile? So why do you always start the wheel with the short put? Why not start it with the covered call? Perfectly valid question, and you certainly could start the wheel with a covered call, but there are some advantages to starting it with the short put. So let's go over to my trading platform. Of course, I use TASTYTRADE as my trading platform, and let's run the wheel potentially on a stock like NVIDIA. I'm just picking NVIDIA just because I don't currently have an NVIDIA position. And typically, when I want to sell a put on something, I go about 60 DTE, go to about the 20 delta. Let's choose the 17 delta put in this case. We take a look at the risk profile here. Let's go into the curve and analysis here. And you can see this is the standard risk profile of a short put. As long as the stock goes up or comes down but doesn't go down below our short put at expiration, we make the max profit. If it goes below our short put, we still make some money, but we start losing money until our break-even point right around 122.75 or so. And then we actually start losing money at expiration on the position, potentially unlimited losses to the downside, right? Now, the covered call, if we do a covered call, its risk profile will look very similar, but take a look at the short put. On this example, 17 delta short put, I'm going to receive a credit of 226. That's our max profit. Buying power reduction is $2,500. Now let's do the covered call and compare. So let's go back to the table. Now for covered calls, I typically don't do these at 60 DTE. I like doing these about 3 weeks out in time. So let's go to the 21-day cycle. And to start the covered call, of course, you need to purchase some long stock. So let's go ahead and buy 100 shares of NVIDIA at $144.50 per share. And then let's sell some call against it. Typically, it'll be somewhere around the 30 to 35 delta call. Let's sell the 150 strike here. That's the 33 delta call. We'll receive like a 240 credit on that call. But you can see our covered call, if I go to the curve and analysis, the risk profile, looks pretty much the same as a naked short put, right? We make our profit. If it goes up, if it goes down, we start losing money and potentially unlimited losses to the downside because of the 100 long shares. Now, our max profit on this trade, on the covered call example here, this is $777 is our max profit versus the $220 max profit on the earlier trade. But notice the buying power reduction. The buying power reduction on the short put trade was like $2,500. The buying power reduction on this is $7,000. Well, that's the big problem here. This is a much bigger trade as far as buying power reduction, right? That's tying up a ton of capital into one trade. Now, you could say, well, the max profit, is much bigger. And I would say yes. So if you've got a bigger account and you want to start the wheel with the covered call, you certainly can. But just know the covered call is going to give you more potential profit, but it's also going to come with a much higher buying power requirement. But it is kind of linear. Like if you want to start the wheel with the short put or the covered call, most of the time it won't matter. The one area where I will say that I will lean towards starting the wheel with the covered call rather than the short put is when the buying power reduction on a stock is outrageously high for whatever reason. You often get this with meme stocks or really volatile kinds of stocks. Sometimes the broker will require an outrageous amount of buying power, for example, for selling a put. I can actually show you an example of this. Let's go to ARKK. I often trade this particular ETF, ARKK. Now, if I wanted to go sell a put, let's imagine I want to sell, let's stick to the 28-day cycle here, the monthly cycle for July. Let's imagine I want to start the wheel because, I don't mind taking shares. Let's sell a 21 delta put here. I'm going to receive a credit of 123 for that put, right? But our buying power reduction is a whopping $2,400, right? And that's for a potential assignment at $61 a share, one contract, right? $61 a share. So let's imagine this. Let's imagine I put this on and in 28 days, the stock drops, I get assigned at $61 a share. Well, when you buy stock, you get a 50% discount. So instead of having to put up $6,100 for those 100 shares, I really only have to put up $3,050. And you can subtract the $129 credit I'll receive. So really, I'm only going to have to put up about $2,900 for these shares should I get assigned. That's how much money I would have to pay for a stock position. To sell this put, though, I have to put up buying power for $2,400. I'm getting almost no buying power relief whatsoever for selling this put in this particular underlying. If you're not going to give me any kind of buying power relief, which is the whole advantage of using options versus stock, is that buying power relief you get, that margin. If you're not going to give me any kind of margin, then why the hell would I ever sell this put, right? I'm not going to sell the put. What I would do is I will go buy the shares, because the shares, only cost me, in this case, $3,300 to buy them at the money where they're currently trading. Plus now I'll sell a call against it to reduce my cost basis to $3,200. So why sell the put, the 20 delta put, for like $1.20 and a buying power reduction of $2,400 if I can do the covered call for a potential, in this case, this example, max profit of $700. Buying power is only $3,200, so just $800 more buying power on the covered call. It just makes sense. So if you ever have an underlying that you want to trade and put on a bullish trade like a short put, but the buying power is incredibly high to sell that put, instead of selling the put, sometimes it just makes sense to do the covered call, because you're not going to spend too much more money for the shares. And of course, you have the advantage of, with shares, is there's no time limit on the shares. Like if the trade goes against you on a short put, there's nothing you can do. You could roll it potentially, but options have an expiration where shares don't. So if I'm in a position where ARKK really tanks, well, I've got shares. I can hold on to shares potentially forever. So that's also another advantage with the covered call. So it's just something to keep in mind. This is one of those things that most people probably don't take into account. It's really a lot about the buying power reduction on these things, whether I do the short put to start the wheel or the covered call. I would say 98% of the time, though, I'm going to start the wheel with the short put, because on most things, buying power is not outrageous. ARKK, for whatever reason, that's just one that I've noticed here recently that has that really high buying power requirement. And at that point, it really doesn't make sense to go and sell a put. I'll just buy the shares at that point. Now, if you want to learn more about how to trade options and especially how to run the wheel, check out my book, The Super Wheel Option Strategy. Again, this book is available on Amazon. You'll find a link to the book in the description below. Peace, guys.